Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our 2023 Macro Trends presentation. My name is Sarah, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Fashion Snoops. For those of you who are not familiar, Fashion Snoops is a global creative agency with 20 years of successful trend forecasting experience. Through a mix of human and artificial intelligence, we empower our clients to act on trend-driven opportunities, and we service brands, retailers, and manufacturers in fashion, accessories, home decor, beauty, media, marketing, and other consumer-facing industries. Members of the FS Trend platform enjoy a one-stop shop where they can get inspired, create new concepts, collaborate, present, and sell. Our advisory team partners with clients to give them the tools, access, and advice they need to innovate and successfully act on global trends and cultural shifts. And now I will pass it over to Carrera, who will be leading today's presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Carrera. I'm the lead culture editor at Fashion Snoops, and today we are going to be taking you through our macro trends for 2023. Over the course of this webinar, we will explore how FS macro trends enable brands to foresee long-term cultural shifts and deliver creative strategic thinking across lifestyles and industries. This year, we will be charting 5 macro trends instead of 10 to provide focused information in greater detail. And each macro shift will feature micro trends with in-depth insights and signals developed by our cultural research team, who you will meet today, and tracked with artificial intelligence. So welcome to the webinar, and here are our lovely faces for today. So today I'm joined by Erza Nicaj, a editor at Fashion Snoops in the culture section, and FS co-founder and chief innovations officer, Lilly Berelovich. Before we get started, I'm going to hand it off to Lilly just for a few words on today's macro presentation.
Thanks, Carrera. Welcome, everyone. So this webinar, of course, as you all know, is for clients only and some very special guests. So all of you clients, first of all, thank you for all your support in the past, oh my God, years, and especially the past few months. And we've loved supporting you even more and connecting with you so much more in the past few months, and just being there to answer everything that you need. It's been an incredible roller coaster for all of you, and we appreciate all of your amazing support and the ability to support you during this time. So the culture team and all of us, this round of macros was incredible, and also really challenging because so much information was coming at us in real time. Deciphering, so I think this will go down in history of the macros created during the pandemic, and not just the pandemic, but so much change and so much incredible, innovation and challenges and opportunities were coming at us. So more than ever before, our role was not just to outline the most important macro conversation, but decipher through all of it and cut through all the noise, and again, clearly path the path forward. And because, as many of you clients know, culture is where it all begins for us. So we had to make sure our foundation was clear and stable before we start mapping out the next layers of our seasonal direction for you. So macros, as always, is the first place we start. And making them clear and actionable was an incredible challenge this season, but I think the culture team and everybody that got involved, we came and completed the challenge. And I think you'll find the conversations we're going to have with you today not only insightful, but again, our goal is for you to know exactly what to do with the information. We're not about just gathering insight, we're about directing you up where you go next. So it's an incredible opportunity. We know you're challenged with tasks you've never had to do before, questions you've never had to answer before, and also, as I said earlier, really deciphering everything that's coming at you to clearly understand what's next for you. So we're hoping this is the beginning of that for you and your season. And before we dive in and the culture team takes you through the macros that we've mapped out for you for today, I want to remind you how our season begins and how it evolves. So today we're doing a macro presentation. The macro trends are the first place we start. We try to make sense, as Carrera said, in the past we used to do 10, and as we get more focused on clearly mapping out the information, 5 became a more reasonable map. And for those 5, we focus on obviously the most important buckets, which is sustainability, technology, politics and economics, and wellness. And for each one of those, our goal for every time we drop macros is to give you the understanding of the nuances inside of the bigger conversations. Those big conversations are not shifting because they stay important for many, many years. But inside of each, finding the micro topics that are new, that are evolving, and they're bringing that conversation to a new frontier. And we do that with, of course, our own personal heavy research, but also the help of our AI technology, which is wired into every one of our macro and micro conversations. And for all of you that are clients, I'm sure you know that, but our macros are dropped once a year, but they're evolving on a daily basis, meaning that we have wired technology to give us confirmation, find even more nuances and newness within each micro, and the AI technology keeps ticking and bringing new ideas forward throughout the year. So every time you get into that section, there's new articles and new confirmation. It allows you to keep track. It also allows us to really understand where that's evolving to, and of course, create new reports and new conversation about those important topics. From there, we move into cultural sentiments. And this is, of course, something we added a few years ago. And this pandemic has proven that understanding how consumers feel is more important than almost anything else. So we look at the big macro conversation, but then our goal in the cultural sentiments is to really understand their needs and how they feel. We map out 4 for the season. We've started launching them already, the new ones. If you guys haven't checked them out, I suggest you do. They're beautiful, more emotional than ever. And in that area as well, we had to navigate a lot of information, a lot of great ideas, and a lot of emotions coming at us, and to decipher and pick the strongest 4. From cultural sentiments, which are still looking at consumer feelings and consumer needs, we moved into design aesthetics. We keep those 4 sentiments, but now explain to you how to use them into your design strategies. And that's where we get more specific with color and material and shape, etc. From then, we get even more specific. The design aesthetics stay cross-market. Then each market takes those design aesthetics and starts to translate them into product shifts. So as you see this circle, we start wide and then get more and more specific and more granular and more directive onto product and in your specific market area. So we're starting with macros today, but all of the other reports are on the site and being posted, and we'll have other events that bring those ideas to the forefront as well. I also want to say for all of you that are clients, you will be getting this PowerPoint presentation, although all of this information lives on the site, but everybody always asks. And before you do, we'll be sending you this presentation so you can have all of the macros in one place and use it as a PDF. So you could sit back and you don't have to write a lot of notes because everything is on here. They'll be impossible for us to answer questions because we need to get through a lot of content in this time with you. You could be asking them in chat, or please feel free to contact us. Since you're customers, you have direct access to each of us, Carrera, myself, Erza, your client service team member, your sales rep. any editor you want to speak to, we're always here to answer any specific questions. So with that said, I hand it over back to Carrera and Erza to go through the macros.
All right, thanks so much, Lily. So let's get started with our 5 macro trends for 2023. Let me first start by saying we developed these trends from September to December of 2020. And to be a forecaster over the past year, when so much of the bedrock of culture has been shifting and changing, has truly been such a thrilling research challenge. And in a time where the future is so unclear and so much remains up in the air, we really find great pride in the work we're doing to kind of demystify the future for our clients. So on this slide, we see our 5 macro trends for the year, and those are metaverse creators, return to wild, course correct, time to heal, and rehumanize. And today, Erza and I will be taking you through these macro shifts in culture for the next 2 years and what this means for your business. So let's start off with metaverse creators. So here we're really exploring this new breed of bold creators that are leveraging new technologies to really push the boundaries of creative expressions on the internet. In a sense, this new format of the internet is emerging, supported to support all these new necessities of creativity online. So the need for greater connection, the need for new mediums of expression and new avenues for awe-inspiring experiences, just to name a few. So we wanted to include the evolution map here because we really want to impress upon you all that these don't come out of nowhere. They don't spark like a firework one day. They're a slow shift that we're constantly tracking to find the newest edge of. So in 2019, you can see here that we started tracking the new creative movement. And of course, when I say 2019, we developed these in 2017 because we're always posting 2 years ahead. But we were looking at the new creatives, and in 2021, we were talking about the AI threshold and how artificial intelligence will slowly creep into every asset and every market of our lives. And then in 2022, we spoke about the digital deep end, in which we step into the maturity age of technology, where entertainment and e-commerce are omniprevalent in our lives. And so these are all the kind of phases that have brought us to this moment of metaverse creators. So let's start by defining terms. The metaverse is this new term that has been springing up to describe the new frontier of the internet. It's basically a new reality where physical and digital worlds collide to create an all-encompassing domain of work, play, commerce, social interaction, in cyberspace. So it may sound like science fiction, but the earliest stages of the metaverse are already here. During the pandemic, we all flocked to virtual worlds like TikTok or games, or of course Zoom like we are now. And we created experiences within experiences for interesting event combinations. So we researched into weddings and protests and even political campaigns that were held inside Animal Crossing, or while others were holding their graduation ceremonies and pop concerts within the world of Fortnite. So with physical distance no longer limiting our social spheres, we learned how to make new connections through our screens, but perhaps felt a little bit frustrated by the lack of like full immersiveness. And so that's the metaverse. And then this is where the creators come in to kind of solve that lack of immersion. We're seeing that this new breed of creators are really interested in using VR and AR, sensorial technologies, IoT capabilities, and world building software to really construct the future of art, commerce, and reality itself. In 2023, the frameworks for the metaverse are well underway, with Apple and Microsoft set to release extended reality platforms with affordable VR headwear, and affordable is the key here, while Facebook is experimenting further with its fully virtual reality social media platform, Horizon, which is currently in beta. I want to now turn your attention to the micro trends underneath. With metaverse creators, we explore a total of 6 micros, but for the purposes of today, we will only have time to take you through 3 of them. However, we strongly encourage you to go onto our site and learn more about them, the ones that we didn't cover today. So today we will be talking about creative tool expansion, phygital realities, and ultimate collab. But with identity download, you'll find it on our site, where we track the freedom of expression users are exploring when it comes to constructing identity online through avatars and social media platforms, and incorporating digital clothing. artificial infiltration continues to track the prevalence of AI across industries, including fields like design and journalism, poetry, and even visual arts. And then finally, with chaos response panel, we see that the limitations of the pandemic have introduced an unprecedented wave of resilience technologies, creating a sort of chaos response panel for decision makers, brands, retailers, governments in reacting very swiftly to the next oncoming catastrophe so that we're never caught off guard again. So moving right on to phygital realities, the first micro that we'll be covering today. So with this one, we're really tracking how the physical worlds and the digital realms are spilling over into one another and truly mixing. One great example of this is gaming. It's steadily becoming the most popular pastime, surpassing sales figures for both film and TV and music combined. So we're really tracking this space. But the promises of the metaverse are really coming into full view when we attend experiences within experiences. So I was speaking before about musicians hosting concerts within the virtual worlds of games, or protesters taking their messages to the cyber streets of VR chat rooms. But if we kind of contrast all the digital immersiveness of online realities, we can kind of contrast that with back on Earth, where we're tracking the emergence of ambient technologies. So this is the further acceleration of the Internet of Things, where essentially every item that you own is smart enabled. It communicates with other objects in your room. And even further than that, that we are communicating with the objects, no longer hunching over keyboards or craning our necks on smartphones, but rather through a more intuitive interface of eye tracking and gesture and voice control. So these will be the three main interactions that we'll have with our technology, and it will essentially become the seamless web of smart interactions around us. So the future of phygital will leverage AR and VR realities to place future creators and consumers in this blurred realm of infinite tech-enabled opportunities and new experiences. And we're really excited to see where this continues to go. Up next, we have creative tool expansion. I think something that's really interesting here is that artists of the 21st century have seen this significant upgrade in their creative tools. So beyond Photoshop and beyond VR design software, artists of the future will have all these new tech-enhanced tools at their disposal when creating art. So we'll see digitized senses and like touch and smell and taste, which will allow creatives to maybe design a film that you can taste or a podcast that you can smell. So we're really seeing this like unbridled expression on the horizon as these technologies do in fact reach the consumer market. We're also seeing body augmentations like prosthetics that might enable dancers to leap to new heights, or even digital instruments that you interact with just by touching surfaces or the air. We're seeing a lot of new interest in consumer electronics in that space. In the realm of fashion, designers gain access to a host of new 3D design software and explore the limitless freedom of designing digital clothing, and this clothing being free from the laws of physics or from material constraints. It all exists in a digital realm, and it can flutter in non-existent wind in Fortnite. And a new tech toolbox is emerging for the next generation of creatives, leveling them up in the realm of possibilities of artistic expression. So I want to talk actually about the photo here. Is called e-traces, and that's a motion tracking slipper that features just a small electronic device attached to the bottom of the shoe. And this chip records the foot's pressure and its movement, allowing the dancer to draw while she dances or they dance, and then have that uploaded, and you could kind of watch this digital rendering of the dance, which is a really exciting development for dancers to now express their art. And then the final one I'll be speaking to today is the ultimate collab. So something interesting that we were all really inspired by with this one is when you think of creative movements throughout history, maybe Paris in the 1920s or Silicon Valley in the 90s, physical congregation and collaboration has been vital to like this boom of creativity. But where does that exist in pandemic times? Of course, it's all online now. Almost And where we might think that that might be a hindrance to creativity, we're actually seeing it become this amazing provoker of cross-global collaborations. Because in a year marked by quarantine and isolation, these new technologies are bringing the creative process online and ushering in the future of cross-global collaborations. We're seeing Zoom and conferences really up their capabilities. We're going to see a lot of immersive technologies like AR and VR, and even maybe holograms will make it into these experiences for more engaging events. And the widespread communal aspect of the internet allows people from across the world to crowdsource their inspiration, creating group-led art projects and films on platforms optimized for production and cooperation. So those are the three that we'll be covering today. Next, I kind of want to talk to you guys about our AI tracker. So our AI tracker, as Lily kind of mentioned at the start, allows us to scan the internet based on buzzwords to deliver daily new articles onto this section of our site that you can use, that we certainly use when we research to ensure that we're up to date on all the top new developments in each of these fields. This is just a screenshot of our tracker, and as you can see, we have it already tracking metaverse creators, and it's populating articles on everything from the new normal of concerts and exploring mixed reality of holograms to the new creative class ushered in by TikTok. So this section of the site really allows you to get up-to-date information on the newest fringes of each of these micros to do further research and stay ahead of the curve. And with that, I will hand it off to Erza to talk about our next macro trend, return to wild.
Thank you, Carrera. Hi, everyone. I'm Erza. I'm a culture editor. Thank you for joining us today. So for this season, we're exploring the topic of sustainability through a more human nature lens, and we're looking at why consumers and brands are pursuing a more reciprocal relationship with the earth. So as we recall our true nature, we realize we are and have always been inseparable from wildlife. So it's time that we return to wild. So here on the map, we have the previous macros that led to return to wild. You can see here that our previous conversations are still relevant and evergreens with topics such as human nature, eco-virtuous, and green reality. But these shifts have evolved from a pursuit to a green lifestyle to a deep desire to become synchronized with our true environment. So in our macro with Return to Wild, we essentially merge sustainability, wellness, and humanity. We discovered that the majority of mankind's existence has lived in natural environments, and it's only been the last 0.01% of our existence that we've evolved from that. So now we wonder in the short time, like, have we really lost touch with the earth, and how do we reroute ourselves back within the natural order of the planet? So it's about going back to our core and closing this artificial gap between wilderness and ourselves. It's also about respecting the planet and discovering that when we do so, there's a mutual healing. And in this pivotal bloom and doom moment for our planet, people are waking up and hoping that by reconnecting with the earth, that we're gonna find the answers to ensure our survival. Because this pandemic has made evident just how interconnected our global problems and solutions are, because at the speed of which a virus can spread across the globe, it will have similar effects with impending climate disaster, and it will impact us all. And in addition, the lockdown did show us a small glimpse of a beautiful growing world without human intervention. So I'll be taking you the first three micros in greater detail, but the other three I just want to touch up on is eco-virtuous standards, which is this new eco-conscious consumer that emerges, and they're ready to enforce green virtues among their peers and brands. With preserving life, we talk about extinctions, whether it be the Earth's extinctions, the extinction of plants, animals, resources, or even indigenous peoples. And we discover all the new raw and radical resources that are being reimagined to form new textiles and innovations. So our first micro is called interconnected systems. So there's this growing awareness of how deeply interconnected nature's ecosystem is. And so we begin to respect this delicate balance, that makes life on Earth possible. And it's through these interactions that we understand how each element in our environment is significant, including the small decisions that we make. So, aiming for sustainability is not nearly enough anymore, but instead now we favor the practice of regeneration, reciprocity, and interconnected ecosystem healing. And so practices like regenerative agriculture bring biodiversity back to farmlands and soil health at the forefront. So this helps stabilize high levels of CO2 in the atmosphere. And there is a movement in farm to closet retailing that's appealing to consumers and producers, because research found that farms with regenerative practices were 78% more profitable than conventional plots. So a rewilding movement takes hold as people look to reintegrate themselves back into nature. So the shocks of the global crisis have made it, evident that we need to seek out self-sufficiency as a form of preparation. So many are relearning the essential knowledge of survival. They're practicing botany, foraging, they're learning how to make shelters and tools, and they're just living entirely off the land. And in addition, many discover that time spent outside has immense healing properties. And this is when, we discovered that inseparable link between humans and the earth. And so the last one is called roots and wires. So too often when we think of technology, we think of it as a man-made device comprised of wires and silicone, but we often forget the natural technologies found in leaves, roots, and traditional indigenous wisdom. So hence solutions here are found in harnessing both new and ancient technological methods. Traditional ecological knowledge of indigenous people and biomimicry becomes a major motivation behind design, while at the same time there's all of these new innovations, whether it be lab grown, 3D printing, AI, blockchain operations, and so much more. And it's really pushing sustainable technology into new realms of possibility. And we did see that the green and technology and sustainability market is expected to reach 36.31 billion by 2025, which is right around the corner. And so some of the AI examples here that I wanted to highlight is this new fabric that scientists in Harvard have created. So they've created a keratin-based wool fabric that remembers its shape and can change when commanded with new elements added, such as water. This is similar to the way that hair texture changes with keratin treatment. And this special type of wool will make waves in the fashion industry by really helping reduce waste. This next one is lensing partnered with Textile Genesis to assign each fabric a digital fingerprint. So using blockchain technology, these fingerprints can be used to follow every step of the way between shipment to the production journey, and it even authenticates the product at the final retail stage for customer verifications. So a lot of customers want transparency, and lensing wants to provide a solution for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erza. So with that, we will now talk about our third macro, which is course correct, a macro that really looks to our political, social justice, and economic climate to ask, what did we do to get here, and where are we headed next? With the pandemic revealing all the various fractures in our systems, how do we pick up the pieces and course correct for a better future? So looking at our evolution map, you'll notice that we have been tracking the activist movement in 2019 and 22 and tapped into the climate of distrust that has really been coming to a head this year, culminating in our 2022 clash of economic and political ideologies, all of which will bring us to this new need for course correction in 2023. So more on the topic of course correct. During the pandemic, we really saw the gears and the machinery of our world grind to a halt. And this really allowed us to force this break from our entrenched cycles of increased profit demands and consumption and short-term mindsets to really consider if this is even how we really want to be living, if this is how we want to be consuming product, if this is how we want our economic systems to work. And as the cracks in our systems widened, we truly asked ourselves, how did we get here? We have this global climate crisis that and climate pollution that by some figures says causes the deaths of 400,000 people a year. Global dissatisfaction with democracy is the lowest it's ever been. We see wealth inequality continuing to plague the masses as people continue to slide into poverty. So after years of growing distrust in the institutions that structure our lives, the pandemic era has made one thing clear. We have lost faith in our systems because our systems have failed us. But in a post-pandemic landscape, the need for course correction becomes blatantly evident. By 2023, the cultural, economic, and civic reset is underway. And by taking this opportunity to chart a new course, we embark on a prosperous path with the core human needs, with new core human needs as our compass in restructuring a society on foundations of trust and equity. So today I will be talking to you guys about long-termism, tech ethics, and brands for office. But the others mentioned here are challenging institutions in which we see citizens banding together to assess whether or not their institutions are truly serving humanist and planetary goals, and then tearing them down if they don't to rebuild new ones. With learning revolutions, we track the future of fully accessible learning and digital hybrid models of knowledge sharing as education continues to play such a huge role across every age group. And then with economy, we track the integration of green policies and technologies into our production systems as the future of sustainable GDP growth is going to be increasingly green. And finally, with reevaluating capitalism, we see that the increasing wealth inequality is creating greater tensions and calls for actions at the highest levels. So starting with long-termism, this idea we were so excited by, and we really started the inspiration process with this term called 7-generation decision making, which is an ancient Iroquois philosophy that asks us to reflect on how the decisions we're making today will impact the next 7 generations of people. So what we decide today will impact people 150 years from now. So we really have to consider, are we being good ancestors? And that question really led us to long-termism as something that governments and businesses should really consider while they do business. Because when we think of it, our modern culture of instant gratification and short-term gains has really contributed to a lot of the destruction that we have to face today, and that we are setting up future generations to face. So we're seeing a lot of interesting developments in this field. Specifically, some governments in Scandinavia are setting up future generation commissioners positions, which their sole purpose will be to advocate for the future of generations when different policies and laws are being enacted. We're also seeing companies create positions to represent the interests of the distant tomorrow. Some companies in Japan are bringing children into the boardroom to advocate for the future of whatever products, whatever implications their products will have on the future of society. So overall, we're really looking to broaden our horizons and think of metrics that show long-term growth rather than short-term gains. And overall considering, are we being good ancestors to future generations? The next kind of course correct that we need to consider is technological ethics. So I think maybe a lot of you actually might have watched this Netflix documentary that kind of woke us all up to this realization of how much data is being collected, how much we are truly the product of these tech organizations, and how long they've been able to kind of move in this direction without really the reins being pulled back on them. So essentially, we're ready to course correct, and we're ready to put into place some policies so that this free reign over our data and our social media platforms is kind of reined in. So we're going to see 3 vital areas of tech ethics really being talked about and considered. First will be algorithmic bias. We'll see big tech monetization structures also getting scrutinized. And then the third area is personal privacy. So I'll start with algorithmic bias, where we're seeing tainted data sets actually reinforcing oppressive structures like racism, sexism, and ableism in these systems that we might have thought of as infallible because they're technological and they're not prone to human error. They are, because they're trained on data sets that we create. And solutions to this will be ensuring that creators of algorithms are diverse. We're seeing a lot of feminist dataists really enter the space and advocate for this as well. Second, the plummeting consumer trust in big tech social media companies leads a call to revise all the monetization structures that are based on attention, radicalization, divisiveness, and tech addiction. And consumers demand government regulation and are increasingly flocking to new platforms that are transparent in their human-centered approach. So I think even in the last 2 weeks, we've seen this huge flock from WhatsApp towards Signal, which is a fully encrypted website. So we're really seeing consumers ready to make shifts that will protect them against big tech. And then finally, the third group, consumers are making new demands on privacy and data ownership. COVID has certainly fueled innovations on phone tracking systems, but that's also caused a kind of widespread worry of, okay, well, how much are you tracking and how much are you gathering on me? And I think in response to this, we'll be seeing a lot of suspicious and protective behaviors. A lot of people will be maybe disguising their faces to protect against facial recognition. Certainly VPNs will be in widespread use as people try and protect where they are when they're accessing the internet. Next up, our final one for this section is brands for office. So brands for office is basically this idea that no brand is able to be neutral in this marketplace. As Gen Zs and millennials are increasingly and unwaveringly committed to social progress movements and politics, it's no longer really an option for companies to kind of stay out of it, or else they will lose their consumer base. We're seeing that consumers increasingly want their brands and the companies that they support to share their interests and to take a stand for the things that they also believe in. We're also seeing that while this can certainly gain trust and authenticity in the eyes of your consumers, I'm sure that we've all seen unfortunate companies fall victim to woke washing and greenwashing and then therefore face backlash. So it really is a very tricky space to enter right now for any company, and therefore I think it's going to be very interesting to see how people will navigate it and put into place all the different essentially making sure that they're set up to guard against severe backlashes and canceling. And one great way to do this is by inviting diverse thinkers and creatives into your boardroom, into your offices, into who you employ to make these decisions. And basically, to kind of sum this one up, successful brands will now have to sit at the intersection of product and purpose, and messaging will need to kind of shift from what can we sell you to how can we serve you. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people are questioning how brands can support their lives rather than just give them more things to buy. So we're seeing this as a huge shift for brands to consider for the next 2 years and onwards. And then finally, with our AI tracker, once again, we have some great articles here populating that are always at your disposal and at our disposal when we're researching, but everything from tracking the 398% increase of users on Coursera, the online learning platform, to articles on activism in constructing your brand will continue to be incredibly important and worth researching into with this technology.
Thank you, Carrera, Erza, and Lilly for that incredibly insightful presentation. If you would like more information about Fashion Snoops, or if you would like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with one of our platform experts, please email us at sales@fashionsnoops.com or visit us at fashionsnoops.com for more information.